Hello and welcome back to another episode of TU Stories. I'm your host, Adrian Battle Marston, and today we are honored with another guest, and I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kristin Pinkowski. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a staff member here at Towson University, where I'm the program coordinator for the Hill Oaks Scholars Program.
So, for people that have no idea what Hill Oaks is, walk us through how you would describe that for someone if you're trying to give like a sales pitch, essentially.
All right. So, Hill Oaks is a program for women in STEM here at Towson. It is ideally a 3-year experience where students are accepted into the program. They are a part of a cohort of fellow students pursuing one of the 5 STEM department degrees that we have here. They participate in professional development on a regular basis, career exploration, and they're a part of a cohort. So they are part of a group of women pursuing a STEM degree that they can lean on while they're here at Towson. And hopefully, because we're still new, when they graduate, they will have a group of people that they can lean on.
Yeah.
We get mentors for the students, send them to conferences. We host some high-profile speakers that our students can engage with. The hope is that we provide the students the skill set that they need to be successful in the workforce, because the bigger goal is to retain women and other genders in STEM so they don't drop out of the workforce.
Yeah. So this seems like an intentional effort, and I can imagine historically there's been some underrepresentation with women in STEM. And you talked a little bit about how your mom was part of your inspiration.
Yeah. My mom is a scientist. She actually is in the process of retiring, but she has over 34 years where,
Wow.
in the pharmaceutical field. So she started her career in the 80s doing environmental things, water testing, and she went to graduate school and became pregnant with me. She was already married to my dad. She went to University of Illinois, Chicago, and so I was technically with her when she was a TA. When she was pregnant, she said, I can't do human anatomy because she was feeling sick as a pregnant woman, and gave birth to me, and I would sit on her lap while she was typing her thesis. So I forget what she did right away, but then she eventually worked for a pharmaceutical company in the Chicago area where she put together and did AIDS test kits. This was during the AIDS crisis, and then went on to help innovate certain drugs that are on the market. Currently, one of the main drugs that my mom's company made is Humira. It helps with rheumatoid arthritis and things like that. And she worked at this company for almost 4 decades in many different capacities. So she ended her career in a vice president role, but she did bench research. She would stay home all day and watch, raise us kids. She was the mother of 5. I'm the oldest of 5. And then my dad would come home and she would go work in the lab. And then...
Oh, they would just tag each other out.
Yeah, so she basically didn't sleep for many years.
Yeah.
And that also helped me see my dad as a really supportive partner, right? Supporting his wife in her STEM career in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. And when I got a little older, she did things like manufacturing. So she would go inspect like the fermentation tanks making the drugs.
Wow.
She moved into quality control, managing clinical trials, global clinical trials. So she had a big career, but she always kept it moving. Every couple of years, she would see what else was out there in the company, because it's a pretty big company in the Chicago area. She would tell me stories as a woman of some of her male chauvinist bosses, the ways that she would be treated. And I would be like, oh, man. But then I found out about Hill Oaks trying to solve these issues that still exist today.
Yeah.
There's different discrimination that happens in the workplace. Women need support in college and beyond. And I was really inspired to kind of get into this role based on my mom's experience. Something I'm also passionate about is the fact that in the late 80s, early 90s, when my mom was pregnant with my sister, the 3rd kid in our family, she realized I need to go part-time. I can't manage. I want to still remain in my career. Yeah, so she told her bosses, hey, I'm having another child. I want to see if I can do my role part-time. And they initially said no. And she was like, let me ask again. And she negotiated with HR and her managers to then create a part-time position. It was like the first part-time position because mostly men in the field just didn't need to do that. They weren't caretakers.
Right.
And so that helped her company eventually launch job sharing, where mostly women would say, okay, let's share a job and get compensated pretty well, but share a job so they would work on the same project, but maybe you would work Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I would work Tuesday, Thursdays.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, so they could be with their families or just be part-time, but then maintain that status. So they didn't have to drop out of the workforce, but they could still work on projects and experiments and things like that. So she was a part of that change, and that was really inspiring to bear witness to as a kid.
So this is happening 80s and 90s.
Not that long ago.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And we're also, in that period, particularly in those 2 decades, we're sort of in the cusp of like new technology sort of being introduced. This is when Apple's like starting to blow up,
right?
And other technology. And you even mentioned the AIDS crisis that happens. Did she ever talk about how much pressure was on some of them during that time? Because you're getting hit from a lot of different angles there.
Right. There's a couple things. I remember talking to her during COVID. During COVID, a lot of companies, actually her company was one of the ones that makes the at-home test kits for that there was lots of pressure to like create these test kits and things like that.
Right.
So that societal pressure, but also, there's a lot of pressure too with pharmaceutical companies. They're trying to innovate solutions to health issues, but then sometimes there's side effects and not a lot of folks understand the science behind things.
Yeah.
So there's that pressure. I think as a family, it's interesting because my father was a really supportive partner, and he worked from home before it was a thing. I have a younger sister who I'm 15 years older, and so she was born in 2001. And when she was born, my parents said, okay, how can we make this work in a different way? And so my father eventually was able to work from home, with dial-up internet and things like that.
Yeah.
So he could work from home, pick up, my sister from the bus stop, so my mom could go to work and further her career. And so he did that for many years before it became trendy or a necessity to manage the pandemic. So I think about how there's a lot of pressures in career and home life that kind of help things.
And I mean, you've mentioned, and it's pretty clear how much of an influence your mom had. Mm-hmm. Did you always want to be in the science field? And how did you land in the Hill Lopes area?
Well, the fun fact is that I am not a scientist, but there was a little bit of pressure on me from my mom because she, came of age kind of after all the feminist waves, and she really encouraged me and my siblings to get into careers that were high paying and things like that. However, most of us did not do that. So I happened to go to a high school that had a great STEM program. I went to a small rural public high school in Illinois.
Yeah.
And I had great teachers, but that wasn't my passion. And so I pursued political science and history. I wanted to go into politics. I did the pre-law track where I analyzed constitutional law. So I was thinking I could clerk for a Supreme Court justice, things like that. I'm really passionate about history and how it's taught. And so I pursued a degree in history where I studied like post-Reconstruction era, lots of civil rights history, race relations in that time, the turn of the century. And so I totally abandoned science. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with a career beyond law school or maybe working for a member of Congress. And I did a congressional internship in college, which was amazing because it brought me to this part of the country. And I said, ooh, I kind of like it here. I worked for a member of Congress that really allowed me to expand my thoughts. Sometimes when you work for a member of Congress, they really restrict what you can do recreationally, like going to see folks speak. If they're not on their same side of the aisle,
Yeah.
it might not be allowed. I worked for a member from Minnesota. His office was great. And so that summer in DC, I got to see lots of different speakers. A lot of my role was giving tours of the Capitol building, which they don't do so much now because there's a Capitol Visitor Center. But I really enjoyed that. I didn't enjoy the contentious political environment. At the time President Bush was in office, we were in our wars. And so I wasn't too keen on getting involved with those issues being so heated. But I really enjoyed giving tours of the Capitol building. So I returned to college my last year and said, "Ooh, I might want to teach. How do I do that?" And in the 2000s, like Teach for America and some of these other teaching programs are really popular. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, this will give me a route to become a classroom teacher. And I took some education classes, finished up my degree, and I eventually landed at a program here in Baltimore designed to help Catholic school teachers in the Archdiocese. My Catholic identity really developed in college, particularly in the social justice route. I really started to embrace the Catholic social teachings, that the religion is kind of the best kept secret of the faith, but anti-poverty, anti-war, anti-death penalty, those sorts of things, pro-environmental justice. And so I thought, ooh, I could teach kids, teach them history properly, in my view, teach them government based on my government background, and make a difference that way. And I came here and I taught at a small Catholic school, social studies and religion for middle schoolers, and I absolutely loved it. And it's really funny because all of my students are pretty much graduated college now. But I knew that I am a natural born leader, so I wanted to get more into administration.
Yeah. And
that led me to be tapped to be the assistant director of the program that I did. I was really passionate about community. The teaching program I did had 3 pillars, one of which was community. Hill Lopes has a community pillar. When I was brought in to the program, it involved a residential component. So I lived with other teachers. And that was amazing because we would all go teach. It would be really hard. We would teach all day, come home and be with each other, cook meals together. It was a program with a spirituality component. So we would do spirituality, prayer, things like that.
Oh, you're full on. This is full on community.
We're living together.
Yeah.
Some people taught at the same schools. Most of us didn't. So we would come home and be like, oh man, this kid won't stop talking. What did you do when your kids didn't stop talking?
Yeah.
And it's an amazing structure. And I loved it. And it made me want to stay in Baltimore because the people I lived with they are still my best friends. I'm a godmother of some of their kids. I've been in their weddings. Some of us lived together after the experience. They're my go-to people. And I was really passionate about what that experience brought to my professional life, and the administrators that ran the program knew I would be good at that, so they brought me in to be the assistant director. And so in that role, I left my school. I would visit the communities once a month to do spirituality with them. I would supervise them in their classrooms, give them life coaching, talk to them about life, and to really help them through their first 2 years of teaching while they were in the program, and make them into good teachers. And they were amazing. And it was an awesome experience. And in that experience, this job was half Archdiocese of Baltimore and half at Notre Dame of Maryland University. And so in that role, I got to see how things structurally work. There are 2 institutions. One's higher ed, one's a religious institution. And it made me very interested in higher ed writ large. So I don't have a higher ed background with my studies, but I said, I might want to look for opportunities that help me, lead in other capacities. And I was really interested in looking into public institutions because my Catholic faith is part of my identity, but the Catholic Church has lots of things that I don't agree with, lots of restrictions as an employee, as a woman. So I wanted to look at more local public institutions, and I was always interested in Towson. Yeah. So when I saw the Hill Hope Scholars Program, I was like, what is this? And when I found it was about women in STEM, I said, ooh, that's interesting. I was raised by a woman in STEM. I found that it wasn't something already established, and that was exciting to me to like build the plane as we fly it, as we say.
Right.
So to be brought in, bring my gifts and talents to a college of scientists and mathematicians. I'm not one of them, but I have program experience, and I'm really passionate about supporting students. And I really like this age group. I didn't know I taught middle school, and then I worked with grad students. But man, I like love the students here and working with them. And I know that it takes a community to be successful. And so
Yes.
I really wanted that to be one of the pillars. And the faculty already wanted that as well. But I said, we need to have regular community gatherings. We can't guarantee these students will be best friends. But I knew from my community experience prior that that would be really beneficial to them. So that's how I came here.
I mean, it kind of sounds like you've gotten a bit of the best of both worlds here.
Yeah.
Where there's some science and the identity, the activist work.
Yes.
There's got to be some areas where they are meshing together.
Yeah, for sure. I've always done different identity work on my own, and I know that. So in this role, I am able to bring opportunities to the students, such as this year, we hosted a documentary screening about women in STEM, the discrimination they face.
Yeah.
We hire folks, we bring in folks from your office to do identity work about diversity, equity, and inclusion. These conversations are really exciting for me, and it brings an opportunity to the students to dialogue about issues that matter, to make them as women in STEM very successful, to have language and tools so when they go off into the workforce, they will be more prepared possibly than their counterparts that might be applying to things. And so I was really intrigued by helping run a program that has an identity component.
Yeah.
Because of my, viewing my mom go through her process and then realizing that it's 2023 and women are still trying to negotiate, how do I have kids and work in the lab? Maybe I work with chemicals and I need to time when I have kids because it might be dangerous, or how do I work with my partner to figure out childcare? And I'm like, man, these are the things my parents had to deal with in the 90s, and I thought we made progress. And so I'm really glad that my students will get to think about these things earlier, connect with mentors, to get advice and to set up plans for themselves, and then to have a space that if they go off into the workforce or into a PhD program, we can't control what that might be like, but we can be there for when they return. We can have a regular engagement with them to give them support. So
this is so interesting because sometimes when we think about the isms or the phobias, our minds can sometimes go to the extreme versions of it, right? And if we don't see those extreme versions, then that's got to mean the problem overall is gone, right? And so when we're thinking about women in the workplace, we're probably thinking, I'm making a pop culture reference of Mad Men.
right.
And it's something on that level, but the examples you're giving right now, I'm sitting there I wouldn't even have thought about that. You know what I mean? And that I think is such a learning experience for people to I think the more you talk to women in the workplace, the more you'll realize how inequitable it can be in places that are not just about Title IXs. They're not just about misconduct. There are a lot of other things that structurally a lot of institutions are just not built yet to be as supporting as they can be.
Yeah, and I think the structural piece is huge. Dissecting and understanding intersectionality, is a huge part of just my professional journey on my own as a young professional, as a staff member, because I realized that, my identity, I'm a white woman. I understand how the system works in terms of privilege.
Yeah.
But I need to make a conscious effort to understand how it works in terms of oppression, particularly because our student body is so diverse. So I'm constantly thinking about, okay, how can we lead this program to better help our students, especially in the context of their identities? We're constantly doing evaluation to make sure we're doing what we should and to address issues. And then just me as a person, I've been excited to be here at TU, to be involved in some of our DEIJ efforts. I was a part of our DEIJ task force here in Fisher in order to kind of set recommendations for our whole college. And that was a really cool experience because I really, want to address some of that systemic change, especially because here at TU we have different transitions coming about. We'll have a new president.
Yeah.
Fisher's getting a new dean in January. And so these are, some people don't like change, but change is also an opportunity.
Yes.
And so to address some of these systemic things. So, yeah.
You've shared a lot about your story, and I guess one final question I'd probably have for you is, Kristin, what is your why? Because you are wearing many hats.
Yeah. My why is about community. So my why is just the fact that together we have more. So community in our program and just community writ large. We're a part of communities because together we have more. We can learn from folks that are different than us. We can get out of our bubble. We can lean on people in our bubble that understand where we're coming from. And that's what drives me to be a part of Hill Oaks. That's what drives me to be a staff member at TU. I have enjoyed collaborating with folks outside of Fisher, whether it's folks from your office, from the communications office, the counseling center. Together we have more. And so I come here every day, keeping that in mind. I try to exemplify that to our students. And our students are getting a lot out of their experience together as women in STEM here at Towson, I believe.
Thank you so much for your time, Kristin.
Yeah, my pleasure. This has been
Great to hear
great.
your story. Now, there's a few common questions.
Okay.
For students that are interested, how and when and where can they apply to be a part of Hill Oaks?
Ooh, that's a great question. So there's two ways you can get involved. So our application to be a part of our next cohort is opening on April 1st, and it is in the Academic Works portal. So you can get, if you're a student in Fisher, you will get an email about this, a couple emails starting April 1st on how to apply. You can follow us at TU_Hill-Lopes. And you can send an email to hill-lopes@towson.edu for more information. So our application opens April 1st and it's due June 1st. However, we have open opportunities available to all students. So every fall semester, we host a prominent woman in STEM, give a seminar about her research. And every spring, we've started to host another additional event. And so this semester on April 6th, we're going to be hosting a woman in STEM. She's a computer scientist and mathematician from the UK, Dr. Anne-Marie Amafidon, who wrote the book She's in Control, with like the control key. And so she'll be giving a talk on April 6th at 6 p.m. in the ballrooms. And then in the fall, we're going to be hosting a very prominent oceanographer named Dr. Dawn Wright. And she's really amazing too. So that's also to come. So we encourage folks to just attend our events, get involved that way. But then if this is something you're interested in, our applications are due every June 1st. And you can email for more information.
All right, y'all. So we'll make sure to have a lot of this information in the descriptions on the video. But if you have more questions, we'll provide the email addresses in there as well. But with that, we want to thank you all for your time, and we will see you next time. Take care, everyone.